Good Wednesday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in for a look at your extended forecast. Not many changes between what we were talking about yesterday and for your forecast for the entire next week that we do have ahead, but we'll go over the specifics. First things first, this morning was a very, very chilly morning, especially in terms of the records. 52 was our record back in 1956. And very thankfully, we didn't dip down that low. In fact, Eastman was the only area that got down to 52 degrees, but we recorded a 54 up here in Macon when I had a forecasted low of 55 this morning. So we saw some areas take it an extra step beyond, but overall, it was definitely kind of the most significantly cool temperatures we have seen since early May. So yes, I went back and did the digging, and it has been quite a while since we've seen numbers somewhere in the mid 50s. So cool mornings and warm days still the main highlight of your 7-day forecast. Steady warm up day by day, and maybe not necessarily correlating to a 1-degree increase as you go into Friday, as you go into Saturday, and then Sunday's a degree warmer. But we are going to see the temperatures a tad bit warmer for the end of the work week and the beginning, or really the entirety of your weekend, rather I should say. And then we'll try to get back to that 90-degree mark as we go into the beginning of next week. Rain chances remain low. We'll talk about what we see according to the latest run of Future View coming up. But crystal clear blue sky continues to be the story on your quad view. It has been this way since the very beginning of this morning. So sunrise, nothing in the way of cloud cover to maybe give you a bit of a faint image of that sunrise, maybe an overcast start to today. It has just been full of blue sky all across central Georgia. And I imagine your temperatures, yes, they are still hovering and feeling mighty nice, hovering around that 70-degree mark. 72s and 73s in our southernmost counties for some of the warmer numbers. And we still have a couple areas like Warner Robins, Roberta, up into Forsyth that are hanging out in the upper 60s. So, of course, areas like New Orleans, as you go down into Florida, you're seeing some temperatures that are slightly warmer into the 80s. But just to the north of us, you can see that most of the eastern half of the United States feeling pretty similar to what our values are here in Macon. A little bit cooler over in Montgomery, 1 degree warmer in Charleston, 1 degree warmer up in Virginia Beach. And then it's really kind of this area along the Mississippi River that you can start to see maybe some patchy areas of yellow, some flashes of orange. That's going to be your temperatures getting into the upper 70s, maybe near the 80-degree mark. But we don't really see too much orange, and hopefully the orange color will be less frequent as we go across the next couple of weeks. Dew point temperatures. We have seen a slight increase so far since the morning hours. We saw dew point numbers in the mid 50s, low 50s, and even down into the upper 40s. Well, it looks like our easternmost counties are holding on to slightly more humidity than our westernmost counties, but overall dew point temperatures in the low 60s. That is still going to be a very pleasant feeling atmosphere, especially given that our temperatures aren't really warm enough to have that influence in the feels like numbers. So at the warmest, you may see a 75, a 76. Overall, we are still feeling like the upper 60s and low 70s as we transition into the late morning time frame for your Wednesday. Winds and wind gusts, thankfully not quite as gusty as what we did see yesterday, but you can see a steady breeze building in from the north and the northeast still, an occasional gust up to 16 miles per hour down in Cordele. But overall, we are going to look at those winds to really calm out as we go overnight, but you'll still notice a steady breeze as you go into the afternoon hours, maybe even lingering a little bit into your late afternoon time frame right around that morning commute, but not quite as gusty as yesterday. So hour by hour, we'll bump up into the 70s far and wide as we go towards 11 a.m. and eventually starting to flirt with the 80-degree mark between 1 and 2 p.m. and topping out somewhere in the low 80s is what the hour by hour meteogram does have for today. But we'll talk about what we did yesterday. How does that compare to it? Well, your morning lows definitely a little bit cooler this morning as compared to the 59 we saw yesterday. 82 for a high temperature, and I don't believe that's only for yesterday. I think we hit 82 on Monday as well, continuing to hover around 7 degrees below average for this time of year, nowhere near the records. And if we were close to any record, of course, this morning and yesterday morning would be a lot closer to that record low. But 54, we definitely would have matched that record if that was the record for today. But like I mentioned, 52 was the record for this morning all time. So 6 inches above average on the year departure of rain from where we should be at this point in the calendar year of 2025. Still have a very good cushion, and as we go into this dry stretch of weather, not really going to have to worry about anything. We'll see that number steadily get a little bit lower, but overall we still can go through a very dry stretch and have that number have a plus in front of it, meaning we're above average. Chilly morning and then the afternoon today, very similar to yesterday. The only difference is a little less breezy, mostly sunny skies, just like we had yesterday, and a high temperature. It's maybe a tad bit warmer at 84 degrees. Here's a look at your heat indices, not even popping up to 84 degrees. So somewhere around 83, 84 is where we look to hover later this afternoon in central Georgia, at least in the Macon area, but most areas may be hovering a degree or two around that threshold. Now we go into the evening hours. Take a look at this. Feels like 80 at 7 p.m. down to 74, 71. And then we're dipping into the 60s very fast. If you're going to be out and about at maybe 10 o'clock tonight, you are going to start to feel a little bit of that chill in the air, but I think it's more once you get into the lower 60s, the upper 50s, that you're really starting to have that chill, kind of chilly weather that is in the forecast. Satellite and radar is all clear. I don't even know if we spot anything in the way of cloud cover besides maybe far northeast and far northwestern Georgia. Overall, the only thing we could look at today is maybe going to be some passing high-level clouds, which Future View is still maintaining that idea. But overall, just a breezy afternoon, mostly sunny conditions, nothing in the way of rain chances, and that takes us into your Thursday morning. So around 9 a.m., maybe some passing upper-level clouds, not crystal clear like this morning was, but going into the afternoon hours, that's where we still have some question marks. Are we going to have a 10% chance of rain, or are we going to have a 0% chance of rain? Well, right now, there's plenty of light green dots that are in the near vicinity of us. I would rather cover the bases just in case a few of you do catch a very brief and a very light shower throughout the afternoon and evening hours Thursday. As we go into Friday, it's more of the same story. You'll see some occasional green dots popping up, but that is not a substantial rain chance whatsoever. I think I may even elect to take those rain chances off your 7-day forecast, given what does happen later on tomorrow afternoon. If we don't see anything pop up in the afternoon hours, then there's nothing to worry about. And even at this, it might be a select 1 or 2% that actually catch one of those stray drizzle showers. Not a very eventful short-term forecast, but let's talk about something that will be a factor, at least day by day, the winds and the wind gusts. Not too gusty, but you will notice a steady breeze going into this afternoon. And then as we transition into the nighttime, that's when we look at the winds to finally calm out as we wake up tomorrow morning. Breeze fields back in, still coming in from the north and the northeast. So we're not seeing that switch in winds like we're so used to seeing. Mainly when you do have a wedge set up, you start to see those winds maybe come in from the south, the southwest, and that would usher in more moisture and more humidity in our forecast from a very warm Gulf down to our southwest. But overall, it just looks like a steady breeze each and every afternoon, and we continue to have that northeasterly breeze blowing down towards the south and the southwest. So with the immaculate weather, grillcast tonight, green spatulas. Go ahead and fire it up. It is perfect backyard barbecue weather all throughout the next 7 days here in central Georgia. But I did mention maybe just a little bit warmer as we go into the weekend. Still going to be a cool morning, so it's a tale of two forecasts. You're going to feel like fall each of the next 2 mornings, really each of the next 6 mornings for the rest of your 7-day forecast. 87 for a high temperature both Thursday and Friday, mostly sunny skies. 10% chance of having a sprinkle or a drizzle shower, but not too confident in that whatsoever. I think most of you will just be dealing with 87 temperatures in those upper 80s and mostly sunny skies. That continues to basically be the same thing for the weekend. 86 on Saturday before 88 on Sunday. All of those numbers below average of 89 this time of year, and we don't even sniff average for our morning lows over the next 5 days. 67 is normally what we averagely start out at. The closest to that is 61 degrees on Saturday morning. So definitely going to be, I would say, chilly for this morning, obviously, and then chilly tomorrow morning, but feeling a little bit more pleasant for each day this weekend. But obviously still right there around the 60-degree mark, not too far off one another are all of those numbers. And the humidity just going to fluctuate a little bit. We'll see patchy areas of light green, dew point temperatures in the 60s, and dew point temperatures that do get somewhere into the 50s. Maybe a little bit of a downtick as we go Wednesday, Thursday into Friday, and then Saturday going back up, Sunday going back down, Monday going back up, Tuesday maybe going back down. We'll see some fluctuation with it, but it's not going to be overly swampy, and we're not going to be in the Shrek swamp category, that dark green with dew point temperatures in the 70s. So now let's go long range. It does look like we're remaining dry, so I wouldn't put too much money on a rain chance. And right now the long range models are definitely reciprocating that idea. Most of the rain still directly down to our south and our southeast. And then as we go into Monday, you might see some passing weak systems try to usher in maybe some scattered showers. You see the European right there hinting at a good cluster of some showers moving through Nashville. But obviously fizzling out very quickly. There's a good amount of moisture, maybe just directly to the east of us, back into South Carolina. Overall, nothing that looks really definitive of any rain chances whatsoever. So it looks like the dry and the pleasant stretch is going to roll on. However, we are going to be definitely on the warmer side as we go into next week. But we did take a look up to our north, up to our northwest, over to our west. No big scale weather systems that look to be coming on the way over the foreseeable future. Tropics update. Also, not anything down to our south and our southeast in the Atlantic Ocean. No activity expected over the next 7 days as of the 8 a.m. update. You do see lots of Saharan dust over here just off the west coast of Africa. And it does look like we have a lot of wind shear and dry air. And obviously you're not seeing that right now on this tropics outlook, but I've looked at some model runs, and that's a big reason why we aren't seeing anything develop in the way of the tropics right now, because we should, on average, be pretty busy for this day all time. In fact, today is the official peak of the Atlantic hurricane season. So what that means is the frequency of hurricanes and tropical storms on average is typically at their highest. So when you compare every hurricane season since we started taking records, September 10th is that average day that we do see the most named storms that are out there in the Atlantic Ocean. Well, obviously not necessarily the case for this hurricane season, but I would like to note, and we've talked about it a lot whenever we're doing these tropics updates here on your extended forecast, we're about at the same pace as we were last year. I do believe it's either a year ago tomorrow, a year ago on Friday, that we had Tropical Storm Gordon form out in the Atlantic Ocean. Either today or yesterday has been the anniversary of Hurricane Francine, which did impact areas of Louisiana. So if we're already going to the pace of hurricane season last year, the G name, Tropical Storm Gordon, will have formed over the next couple of days. We are not even at the G name yet. Remember, we went to Tropical Storm Gabrielle, and we thought that was going to be very likely over the course of this past weekend. It encountered that dry air and that wind shear, and just as quick as that bubble popped up, in fact, even quicker did it dissipate in nature. So we're still awaiting the G name, but obviously we had a bit of a lull after Gordon last year, and then we had Helene form about a week and a half after that. So obviously the G name, we're still right there on that threshold, really keeping up the pace with last year's hurricane season. And you do remember, Helene formed later in the season, Milton formed later in the season, and we got all the way down to, I believe it was the S name. It might have been Tropical Storm Sarah, Raphael, somewhere around there. So we had above average hurricane season last year, even despite having a pretty slow start to the hurricane season. So we're going to continue to keep a close eye on it. Very thankfully, we didn't see any storms that were very, very strong like Hurricane Beryl really early in the season this year. But right now, let's just try to focus on the second half of it. It's not abnormal to start to see that uptick in activity. I would say probably most of your really bad hurricanes all time have occurred in the months of August, in the months of September, and maybe getting into the first part of October. Then we can start to let our guard down just a little bit. But obviously, this is still something that we need to keep updated on each day and each time that you are taking a look online, taking a look at the forecast. But obviously, I always love to go to this 7-day and continue to tell you what I have told you. As of recently, there's nothing that's really going to impact our weather forecast over the next week. You'll see a slight warm up into the mid and upper 80s for high temperatures Thursday all the way through Sunday. Very minuscule chances of rain, maybe about a 10% chance each day. And then as we go into each morning, we will see those numbers cool down somewhere well into the 60s. And then Monday and Tuesday, 91 and 90. So really getting a defining line of your forecast Monday and Tuesday as of right now. 62 for a morning low. Fall weather lovers, rejoice. That's going to be your time to go head outside, maybe get in that morning run. But then as you go into the afternoon hours, going to be a bit toasty, maybe even borderline hot. High temperatures once you get into the 90s are definitely very warm as you go into the afternoon, but still, I think it's a welcome trade-off as we really transition into the end of the summer season and as we go into the official start of fall, which will be September 22nd. And if I'm doing my math correctly, I believe that will be not next Monday, but the Monday after. I'll have to go see exactly what date that is, but we know that we can still have a bit of a warm-up as we go into the month of September to try to transition into October. It's been a very pleasant stretch of weather recently and looks like we have mostly below average temperatures that continue to roll on, but we'll see if we get any higher than those low 90s as we go into next week. Right now, I would say that probably we'll hang out somewhere in the low 90s, maybe even as low as the upper 80s for most of next week, because we're not seeing anything really impact our forecast, and those numbers, we'd have to see maybe a bit of a southwesterly breeze that could usher in some moisture content into our atmosphere to maybe make some of these numbers feel a little bit warmer, but we don't see any indication of that. So a very uneventful and a very dry forecast. These 10% chances of rain are not worth canceling any outdoor plans whatsoever. So continue to enjoy yourself. Make sure that you're dressing appropriately for the mornings. Obviously light jacket weather, maybe even the sweatpants and then the shorts under the sweatpants weather. I was saying that this morning. That's what I'd always wear to basketball games because it's cold outside, but once you walk in that gym, it would definitely get a little bit toasty, and then you start running around and you start getting sweaty. So that's kind of the weather stretch that we're under, and obviously, it's going to get even worse as we go into the fall, starting out in the 50s, maybe warming up into the 70s or the 80s more frequently. But I would say this 50 to 84 spread right here, a spread of about nearly 30 degrees, is definitely feeling completely like completely different seasons at different points of the day. So just continue to dress accordingly, having to utilize a little bit more of your closet day by day. But we'll continue to keep you updated if there's anything that is going to be of notable change with your forecast. Like I said, outdoor plans, if you don't have any, I would suggest making some over this pleasant weather stretch. And I know this is a little shorter than we normally do, but there's just not much to talk about weather-wise. So continue to stay updated, but overall, this is a period that you could go through. You don't really have to pay too much attention to maybe what the temperature is on your weather app, or maybe where those rain chances, what are the timing of them as we go into the weekend. And I think we've earned it after some messy starts to the last couple of weekends. So thanks for tuning in for your extended forecast. We'll be back here once again 10:30 a.m. tomorrow on 13 WMAZ Plus for a look at what's ahead.